Imagine Donald Trump never existed. No celebrity real estate brand that turned into a political brand. No 2016 election that felt like a national stress test. No America First style that pushed politics into a louder, sharper, more personal era. Here's the wild part. The US would still wrestle with the same pressures: jobs, borders, trade, culture, trust. But the timing and the temperature could change. And in politics, temperature changes history. Start in 2016. Without Trump, the Republican nominee is almost certainly more traditional, and the coalition looks different. Maybe the result changes, maybe it doesn't. But the country is less likely to get that same shockwave where politics becomes entertainment and identity at the exact same time. The party realignment still happens, but it may happen slower, with fewer moments that feel like one person is the entire story. So here's the first big question. If America doesn't hit that 2016 jolt, does the heat come down? Or does it build quietly until the next spark? Now, move to policy. Taxes. In our timeline, the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act reshaped the tax code and cut the top corporate tax rate to 21%. Without Trump, you could still see a tax deal. Republicans wanted one, but it likely looks smaller, slower, or negotiated with different trade-offs. Less of a sudden shift, more of a long bargain. Trade. Trump made tariffs and hardline bargaining mainstream again, and NAFTA was replaced by the USMCA in 2020. Without him, the US still faces the same China debate and still revisits NAFTA-era rules. But the style likely changes. Fewer surprise tariff jolts, more incremental pressure through alliances and negotiations. Immigration. In our timeline, early executive actions and travel restrictions became cultural flashpoints as much as policy. Remove Trump, and you likely remove some of those signature moments that dominated headlines. The debate doesn't vanish, nothing vanishes in America, but it may be less defined by a single polarizing symbol. Now the long shadow, the courts. Trump nominated 3 Supreme Court justices, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, shaping the court's direction for decades. In a Trump-less timeline, that lineup almost certainly changes. And even if everything else stayed similar, this alone shifts the country. How rights are interpreted, which regulations survive, and what becomes a national battlefield. Court fights still happen, but the center of gravity could land somewhere else. So here's the second big question. If the court's balance changes, does America fight less? Or does it just fight over different issues now? Talk about elections and legitimacy. In our timeline, the 2020 election aftermath became an extreme stress test of democratic norms, including the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol during the certification of electoral votes. Without Trump, that specific chain of events is far less likely to unfold the same way. Distrust might still exist, but the country may avoid that exact breaking point, or hit a different one later. So here's the third big question. If you remove the personality, do the institutions breathe easier? Or do the same pressures simply find a new face? Now jump overseas. The Abraham Accords were signed in September 2020, normalizing relations between Israel and several Arab states under U.S. mediation. Without Trump, some of those relationships might still evolve, but the deal-making style, the sequence, and the political branding could look very different. Then comes the pandemic. Operation Warp Speed was officially announced in May 2020 to accelerate vaccine development and manufacturing. In a Trump-less timeline, the U.S. still has the same scientists, companies, and urgency. Vaccines still arrive, but the trust environment could shift, and in a crisis, trust is oxygen. If people trust the message, they follow the plan. If they don't, every step turns into a culture war signal. Now stack it all together. A Trump-less America is still America. Messy, loud, ambitious, but it's more likely to be an America with a different 2016, a slower escalation of political warfare, and a different Supreme Court trajectory. It's an America that still argues about trade and immigration, but with fewer signature flashpoints built around one person. It's an America where the pandemic era might feel less like a permanent political brawl, even if the underlying disagreements remain. And here's the final twist. Removing Trump doesn't remove the pressure. It changes how the pressure escapes. It changes the pace, the messengers, and the moments that become symbols. So the real question isn't, would America survive without Donald Trump? It's which America shows up first, one that fights louder or one that fights later. Now, who should we erase next?